but I won't play the sap for you. You gave the works to the Englishman, the Spaniard, Farrell, and Ames. The last three fell for you, and they're dead. I'm crazy about you, sweetheart, but I just won't be the fourth guy to die for you.
Welcome to today's show. My name is John. As always, you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, formerly known as iTunes, or follow the links to social media in the podcast show notes. So please subscribe when you're finished listening. You can also go to classicmovierev.com to read notes, bios, and other random movie thoughts. Today's movie is Satan Met a Lady, 1936. God, it's horrible. I felt like I was being punished when I watched it. This is what I expect a remake to be like, not like the Maltese Falcon 1941. They decided to turn it into a comedy and made Gutman a woman named Madame Barabbas. They made the Falcon into a jewel-filled ram's horn from the age of Charlemagne. This movie is rated 6.2 on IMDb.com. It should be in the low 4s. RottenTomatoes.com doesn't have a tomato meter score for this film, and the audience approval is 20%. New York Times film critic Bosley Carruthers said at the time of the release of the film, quote, "A cynical farce of elaborate and sustained cheapness deserves to be quoted as a classic of dullness. Without taking sides in a controversy of such titanic proportions, it is no more than gallantry to observe that if Betty Davis had not effectually espoused her own cause against the Warners recently by quitting her job, the federal government eventually would have had to step in and do something about her. After viewing Satan Met a Lady, all thinking people must acknowledge that a Betty Davis reclamation project, BDRP, to prevent the waste of this gifted lady's talents would not be a too drastic addition to our various programs for the conservation of natural resources. So disconnected and lunatic are the picture's incidents, so irrelevant and monstrous as people, that one lives through it in constant expectation of seeing a group of uniformed individuals appear suddenly from behind the furniture and take the entire cast into protective custody. There is no story, merely a farrago of nonsense representing a series of practical studio compromises with an unworkable script. It is the kind of mistake over which the considerate and discreet thing to do is to draw the veil of silence." Unquote. That was a long quote, but I think you get his feelings. In 1936, Variety said, quote, "This is an inferior remake of the 1931 The Maltese Falcon. Many changes have been made in the story's structure as well as title, but none is an improvement." It's noted that both Davis's and Williams' credits were dropped below the title, and that Davis had much less to do than at least one other film member of the cast. Unquote. Wow. Actors.
Right, and I'm a Shakespearean actor.
Betty Davis played the role of Valerie Purvis, which should be a femme fatale, but wasn't quite. Davis was covered in episode 101, The Private Lives of Elizabeth and Essex, 1939. Porter Hall played the role of Detective Milton Ames. Hall was covered in episode 89, Ace in the Hole, 1951. Warren Williams played Detective Ted Shane in the same role as Ricardo Cortez and Humphrey Bogart. William was born in 1894 in Minnesota. He attended the American Academy of Dramatic Arts and served in the Army during World War I. He worked on Broadway from 1924 to 1930. During this time, he was in 3 silent films. With the advent of talkies, William became part of Warner Brothers. His major films include Honor of the Family, 1931, The Dark Horse, 1932, 3 on a Match, 1932, The Match King, 1932, Gold Diggers of 1933, Employee Entrance, 1933, Lady for a Day, 1933, Imitation of Life, 1934, Cleopatra, 1934, The Dragon Murder Case, 1934, The Case of the Howling Dog, 1934, where he was first to play Perry Mason, Stage Struck, 1936, sadly he was in Satan Met a Lady, 1936, and 9 films in the Lone Wolf series from 1939 to 1943. He died at an early age in 1948. Olin Howland was Detective Dunhill, and his voice and his comic timing were the high points of this movie. Howland was born in Colorado in 1886. His older sister, Jobna Howland, was an actress, and Olin followed in her footsteps. From 1909 to 1927, he worked on Broadway and made short films. He was in over 200 films between 1918 and 1958. He played a lot of kooks and rubes. Notable films include Nothing Sacred, 1937, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, 1938, Gone with the Wind, 1939, In Old California, 1942, Angel and the Bad Man, 1947, The Spirit of St. Louis, 1957, Them, 1954, and The Blob, 1958, which was his last film. Howland died at the age of 73 in 1959. Marie Wilson played Shane's secretary, Miss Murgatroyd. She is described on IMDb as follows. Quote, lovely, innocent-looking, well-endowed comedian Marie Wilson was a feather-brained delight, instantly reminiscent of the zany Gracie Allen. Unlike Allen, however, Marie was a knockout, with high cheekbones, a wide slash of a mouth, and a figure that wouldn't quit. Unquote. I think that bit of text was left over from the film noir era, and has certainly not been evaluated by the thought police. Wilson was born in California in 1916. After a good education, she worked as a sales clerk until a lucky meeting got her in films. Her films include Bum Voyage, 1934, Ladies Crave Excitement, 1935, March of the Wooden Soldiers, 1934, Broadway Hostess, 1935, Stars Over Broadway, 1935, Miss Pacific Fleet, 1935, Satan Met a Lady, 1936, Melody for Two, 1937, Public Wedding, 1937, The Great Garrick, 1937, Fool for Scandals, 1938, Broadway Musketeer, 1938, Sweepstake Winner, 1939, and The Cowboy Quarterback, 1939. Roles became harder to find for her after 1939, but she kept busy with stage work as well as a few movies that include Rookies on Parade, 1941, She's in the Army, 1942, The Fabulous Joe, 1947, A Girl in Every Port, 1952, Never Wave at a Whack, 1953, Marry Me Again, 1953, and Mr. Hobbs Takes a Vacation, 1962. Marie died in 1972. Story.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
Private Detective Ted Shane, Warren Williams, is being thrown out of a town by the city fathers. He is wearing some sort of cowboy hat thing. On the train, Valerie Purvis, Betty Davis, is sitting nearby. Shane convinces a rich lady that she needs protection when she gets to what I presume is San Francisco. Shane gives her the name of his old partner, Milton Ames, Porter Hall. Shane gets to Ames's office and meets his ditzy secretary, Miss Murgatroyd, Marie Wilson.
Can I help you?
You're not a customer, are you?
No, sweetheart, I'm a detective.
That's just what we need, a detective, to find us a case.
Something told me to come here. Maybe it was because of you.
Something told me to get out of here. Maybe it was because of you.
He goes into Ames's office just in time to take the call from the woman on the train. He has been gone from the Ames agency for 3 years, and he takes it over when he gets back.
Well, what do we do now?
You follow her wherever she goes. So she'll think she needs you. Better hire a few mugs to appear in the background and scare her a little. Some of your friends will do.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hello? What's your name, little girl?
Murgatroyd.
Can you spell it?
M-U-R... No, don't tell me. G-A-T-R-O-Y-D.
Murgatroyd. Sounds like the technical name for killing your mother.
Ames takes Shane home to have dinner with his wife, Astrid Ames, Winnie Shaw, who 3 years prior was in love with Shane. Ames is pretty jealous, but Shane tries to get him to leave his wife alone with him while Ames goes to protect the lady with the jewels. In the morning, Shane goes to the office and confirms his date with Miss Murgatroyd. He goes into Ames's office, and Ames is with Valerie Purvis. She's asking them to find a man named Pharaoh who will help her find the lover that jilted her. Purvis gives him $200, and they are on the case. Ames waits outside the hotel until Purvis meets with Pharaoh. They are followed by a younger man, Kenneth Maynard Holmes. Shane and Murgatroyd are on their date. Shane is flirting with one of the dancers when he gets a call.
What time do you finish tonight, kitten?
Pretty late, Daddy.
After the call, Shane sends Murgatroyd away and makes a joke about going to the graveyard.
Listen, kitten, I've got to go away for a little while, but I'll be back before the end of the last show.
I'll wait for you near the dressing rooms.
All right.
Ames has been shot at close range and is dead at the cemetery. Detective Dunhill, Olin Howland, questions Shane and wonders why he doesn't want to examine the body.
You must feel kind of bad losing your partner so suddenly, just when the firm was getting going.
Well, Dunhill, what's the dope?
One kill out of that old Webley did the work. Right into his heart, through the side.
What was he doing with his arm up like this? Parting his hair?
I don't know. That big burn on his coat, that gun was poked right into his rib. Don't you want to take a closer look at your silent partner?
No, you've seen everything I could see. I'd better run along and break the sad news to the widow.
Detective Pollock, Charles C. Wilson, was searching for clues. Shane leaves, and 5 minutes later, Pharaoh is shot in the back. Shane lets Murgatroyd know about the death. Shane goes back to the nightclub and picks up the dancer he was flirting with. When he goes outside, Dunhill and Pollock are waiting. They ask him about the Pharaoh killing and why he left to tell Astrid about her husband's death, but sent Murgatroyd instead. In the morning, Murgatroyd tells Shane that an Englishman called. Astrid is in Shane's office. She is still in love with Shane. She asks him if he kills Ames and then uses the "be kind to me" line.
Poor kitten.
Oh, Shane. Did you really kill him?
Ah! Who put that bright idea in your pretty little head?
Be kind to me, Shane.
Oh. Well, now, don't worry about the insurance or anything.
I took care of the insurance already.
Oh, well, then you'll be all right.
Be kind to me, Shane. Be kind to me, Shane.
Well, anyway, you love me.
Murgatroyd then asks if he killed Ames. Shane gets a call that Purvis is checking out of her hotel. Shane jumps in the taxi with her. She tells the driver not to go to the depot and instead take her to the Carondelet apartments. She says she is only leaving because the hotel detective was trying to force himself on her. At her apartment, Shane searches her purse and takes a small gun out. Purvis sees him do it. Shane asks for the true story. She says she was in business with Pharaoh but didn't trust him. She says Pharaoh definitely killed Ames. Shane asks for $500 more. When Purvis goes into her purse, the money and the gun are missing. Shane laughs, and then she pulls the gun and the money out, having picked his pocket. He kisses her gun hand and leaves. Outside, Shane confronts Kenneth, and Shane gets the better of it.
Get funny with me and I'll have to fog you.
That's what you've been trying to do, isn't it? Following me around smoking these smelly stogies?
I've got what it takes to do it.
Well, if you're going to keep shadowing me, you'll have to smoke something better.
I'm telling you, mister.
And I'm telling you, if you're going to tag around after me, you'll have to quit wearing that monkey cap.
Dunhill and Pollock go to Pharaoh's hotel, and the clerk says the only person that had contacted him was Purvis. Then he remembers a tall Englishman called on him too. Shane returns to his apartment, and it has been ransacked by a tall Englishman, to include cutting open all the furniture. Anthony Travers, Arthur Treacher, comes in and apologizes for ransacking the room. Travers says since he couldn't find the ram's horn, he will pay for it. He gives Shane a $500 retainer. Travers explains the story of the ram's horn going back to the 8th century. Sir Roland was betrayed by the Saracens, but refused to blow the horn that would save him. When the Saracens got the ram, they filled it with jewels. Shane tells Travers it will cost him a lot more than $5,000 for him to get the horn back. When Shane gets back to his office, it has been ransacked and Murgatroyd has been locked in the closet. Shane begins writing a letter to Murgatroyd's uncle, who is a medieval history professor. Kenneth comes in unseen. After hearing the story, Kenneth grabs a bag and runs out. Shane sets up a meeting with Purvis. He sends Murgatroyd to watch Purvis while he goes to her apartment to search for the ram's horn. When he starts searching, Purvis comes out and holds a gun on him. Murgatroyd calls and lets Shane know that Purvis is not at the meeting place. She takes his gun from him. Room service brings food and a telegram from Espinosa saying that the SS Fujiyama will arrive tomorrow. She burns the telegram and her and Shane sit down to enjoy the room service. Shane tells her that her English friend wants to find the ram's horn. Purvis proposes sex instead of $5,000. Shane grabs the gun and searches the apartment. Kenneth is waiting outside. After Shane destroys her apartment, she throws him out, but he goes back. Dunhill and Pollock approach Shane in the morning about his ransacked apartment. Kenneth shows up and says his boss wants to see Shane. Madame Barabbas, Allison Skipworth, is a well-known thief.
Addie! Here he is! Mr. Shane, I believe?
I believe one thing now myself. This is no snipe hunt. We're after something really big if you're in on this chase, Madame Barabbas.
Oh, then you recognize me.
It's a face that haunts every detective and copper in the world in his worst nightmares.
Well, that is a compliment, in a way.
She uses some Gutman lines. Shane says he is working for himself. Barabbas says she found the horn in Greece, and she paid Travers and Purvis to steal it. However, they betrayed her and stole the horn. Shane sees his pipe bag, which Kenneth stole, thinking it was the ram's horn. The two get into an argument, and Barabbas fires a gun to stop the fight. She pays $2,000 to Shane and promises him $100,000. Kenneth wants to kill Shane because he stole his gun. Murgatroyd's uncle says the story may be true about the ram's horn. Travers comes back into the office and brings flowers to apologize for locking her up. Shane is sure Purvis has the horn, and he wants to stick with her. A flyer talks of the horn's legend and how many have died looking for it. Purvis and Shane are dancing at the nightclub. Travers is there as well as a sea captain. The jazz is good. Travers calls Kenneth and Barabbas and says he has big news. Purvis gets a note and leaves quickly. In the morning, the city fathers come to see Shane about his activities. They give him 24 hours to turn in the Ames killer. Astrid shows up and is jealous of Murgatroyd. Just then, Dunhill and Pollock arrive to talk to Shane. He gets a call from an Italian man with an important message. When Shane finds out the detectives are outside, he ushers Astrid out the back. The message tells Shane to come to the SS Fujiyama and meet Espinosa. When he gets to the dock, the ship is burning. A skiff comes in with a lone man carrying a bag. Kenneth fires 2 shots and Shane and the shipman go down. Purvis is on the dock as well. Barabbas is in the car while Travers and Kenneth get the bag. They decide to double-cross Barabbas. Shane gets up and Barabbas goes after him. Dunhill and Pollock are at the dock as well. Shane has the ram's horn and he beats Kenneth and Travers. Purvis claims that she is the rightful client.
You hired me to get the trumpet and I got it.
Now listen, Shane. I hired you first, so that they wouldn't have it and we would.
We, Valerie?
Uh-huh. You remember me?
Uh-huh. You said there wasn't any trumpet, and that I was silly to talk about it.
Oh, but you knew I was lying, Shane. You knew all the time that I was lying.
You're a lovely liar.
You crossed Travers in Hong Kong. You double-crossed Espinosa, and then you triple-crossed poor Pharaoh.
Poor Pharaoh. I only intended using him to get the trumpet off the boat.
I warned him against you, and he was getting wise to you, Purvis, but he remained faithful to the end.
Shane mocks Kenneth and he confesses to killing Pharaoh and Espinosa. Shane convinces them to make Kenneth the fall guy. Barabbas pays Shane for the horn. When they open the horn, it is full of sand. Just then, Dunhill arrives to arrest the group. A gunfight breaks out and Shane shoots Kenneth in the hand. Shane hides Purvis in the car. After they leave, Dunhill realizes that Purvis is missing. Shane and Purvis get on a train and escape. Dunhill and Pollock arrive and by chance get a telegram that Shane was having sent. Shane accuses Purvis of killing Ames. He shows how she murdered Ames. She realizes that Shane knew all the time that she was the murderer.
My love, that graveyard's famous as a nice, safe place for lovemaking. Ames knew that, and he'd have gone there to be alone with you, darling.
And when you two went sneaking in there, you'd have pretended you were frightened. And you'd have a good tight hold on his right hand, so he couldn't reach for his gun.
Oh, then you knew all the time that I'd killed him. And yet you loved me enough not to give me up, to take a chance at running away with me.
Purvis turns herself into a washroom attendant to keep Shane from getting the $10,000 reward. Purvis feels proud that she has fooled Shane.
I thought you cared about me.
I do, Valerie, but I won't play the sap for you. You gave the works to the Englishman, the Spaniard, Farrell, and Ames. The last three fell for you, and they're dead. I'm crazy about you, sweetheart, but I just won't be the fourth guy to die for you.
Murgatroyd shows up, and she and Shane leave together. World-famous short summary. God, this remake is awful. I hope you enjoyed today's show. I really appreciate you spending the time listening. You can find connections to social media and email at the site on classicmovierev.com. There are links to the podcast show notes as well. Remember, the show is completely free and independent. If you get a chance, jump over to Apple Podcasts and give the show a review. It really helps the show get found. If you want to get involved with the show, contact me at the email on the website. Beware the Moors.